This is the Royals POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Kansas City Royals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Royals dropped Game 2 against the St. Louis Cardinals, and I'll break down what mattered most in today's Royals POSTCAST. I'm Chance Liebau, your host of Royals Reaction this season here on the Locked On Royals channel and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Today we'll be breaking down the most important plays of the game, who stood out, and the topic you'll be talking about with your friends. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. As the Royals drop Game 2 against the St. Louis Cardinals, they have lost 6 straight games, and today's game was about as uninspired of an effort as we've really seen from the Royals this season. Offensively, they just got nothing offensively against what I would consider a real jag on the pitching mound for the Cardinals. Kyle Leahy, not a guy who I would consider a world beater. I think in this upcoming homestand for the Royals, where they face the Yankees, Red Sox, and the Mariners, they're going to face much better pitchers than Kyle Leahy. And today, they just did nothing offensively. This is kind of your A lineup, the lineup that everybody's been hoping for, that you see Jack Caglianone, Carter Jensen, Kyle Isbell, Michael Massey, all of those guys that everybody wants in the lineup. They just didn't do anything offensively. The Cardinals got just enough offensively when the Royals tied in the top of the fifth. The Cardinals come back and get 2 in the bottom of the fifth, and it just feels like the Royals this season, especially in these losses, have just not been able to manufacture runs when they need to. And tonight, the offense just goes in and does absolutely nothing with runners in scoring position, and that is exactly what we'll be talking about to start today's show.
This is what you'll be talking about.
The offense goes a abysmal 1-for-6 with runners in scoring position, 7 left on base. Nobody in the lineup other than Jack Caglianone, who got a lipstick on a pig home run in the 9th inning, has multiple hits in the game. This is a Royals team that has just not been able to get that frenzy hitting that we saw in the winning streak. What we saw from this team when they were really good 2 years ago, it was the frenzy hitting. It was one after another, just everybody getting offensively going. They just haven't had that this season. They've got a bunch of singles hitters in this lineup. They had 3 extra base hits in today's game with Caglianone going deep in the 9th inning. Michael Massey hits a double. Isbell hits a double. Other than that, they have no power in this lineup. I understand that Busch Stadium is a really hard place to hit long home runs or to get doubles. It's a big ballpark. But today, the Royals just got nothing offensively. And this was with their power hitters in. I thought Carter Jensen had some pretty mediocre at-bats. He gets pinch hit for late. I don't love the decision to pinch hit for him, but hey, Starling Marte is this year hitting over 300. So I'm not going to criticize Matt Quatraro for pinch hitting Starling Marte in a spot against a lefty. I'm not going to criticize that because Starling Marte has been really good against lefties this season. If he went with Lane Thomas, then I would have a little bit of a problem. But Starling Marte is hitting 302 this season. He was hitting 308 coming into tonight's game. I have no problem with him pinch hitting for Carter Jensen in that spot. And Starling Marte just does nothing. He flies out, doesn't really do much. And then the rest of the Royals offense, you get a pretty abysmal game from Michael Massey. They only struck out 2 times, but against Kyle Leahy, who, like I said, is not a guy in which I would deem him as a superstar. They get 7 hard hits, 5 hits in total, 2 strikeouts as a game. Kyle Leahy this year is 10th percentile in pitching run value. He's one of the worst pitchers in baseball. 10th in expected ERA. 6th percentile in expected batting average. This is a guy who the Royals should have been teeing off on, but instead they get 8 total hits against Leahy. In total, the Royals get a winding 5 hits, 3 walks, and don't do a darn thing with it because this team just cannot hit with runners in scoring position. And I understand there has been a real fire cue. There's been a rush of fire cue discourse here on the timeline here recently. And at this point, I don't think it's Matt Quatraro's fault. I think that it's at this point, this team just is not performing. You get an awful game out of Vinny Pasquantino other than an RBI single to get the Royals on the scoreboard. You get Salvador Perez, who does absolutely nothing. He's back under 200 on the season. I think that it's at this point, I understand the fact that Matt Quatraro is managing a disappointing team, a team that had aspirations to win the American League Central, make a playoff spot, improve drastically over this roster. But it's the players that just cannot do anything at this point. I understand the frustration, and I'm one of those. I've been on the, I would say I'm in the 1% of people who are defending Matt Quatraro. I don't think it's his fault. But at some point, there has to be some changes. You cannot bat Salvador Perez in the cleanup spot the rest of the season. But at the same time, who are you going to hit there? Who are you going to hit there? Like, this team has nobody that's capable of batting in a clutch situation with some power in the bat. The one guy that would is batting second. They have Salvador Perez. Would you move Isaac Collins up? Probably not. Would you move Jack Caglione up? Absolutely not. He's been awful with runners in scoring position in high leverage situations. Would you move Carter Jensen up? Probably not. He's been in a real struggle fest. So I think that at this point, everything kind of lies on the feet of J.J. Piccolo for assuming the roster, Dayton Moore, who has already been let go by the Royals for putting together many years of just disappointing rosters, disappointing drafts, disappointing years of international free agent signings. At this point, it is an indictment on the roster assembly that this Royals team can't do any better than Salvador Perez in the cleanup spot. That when Vinny Pasquantino struggles, they cannot replace him. When everything goes wrong for the Royals, they have no solutions. When the Tigers have 15 guys on the injured list, guess what? Look up at the American League Central standings. The Tigers are ahead of the Royals right now. At this point of the season, the Tigers, who have 15 guys on the injured list, are putting together a more competent 9-man lineup than the Royals are at this point. That is an indictment on J.J. Piccolo and the scouting department on putting the guys in this lineup that are capable of hitting in general. They are doing an awful job of putting this roster together, and that's why at this point of the season, they are 19-27, 8 games under 500. They just have not been doing a good enough job. I am someone who I'm not going to blame the manager at this point of with this team. It is a manager. That they are called a manager for a reason. They're not called the head coach. They are a manager. If my manager in my job, in my personal job, if my manager tells me, hey, you have to do this, and then I do a bad job of doing it, it's not on the manager. It's on me as an employee. At this point of the season, the Royals as a lineup are not doing a good enough job. I don't think it falls on Matt Quatraro as the manager. I think it falls on the 13 guys that have been hitting for this lineup that have not done a good enough job. That's me as a fan and as a analysis of what this Royals team has been able to do. I think that at some point a change does have to be made, whether that's a lineup or a roster. I don't think that firing Matt Quatraro does you any good, because at the end of the day, you're going to be promoting a guy that was under Matt Quatraro for a reason. I don't think they're going to go out there and say, hey, George Brett, here's the roster. Here, you can be our interim manager. That's not realistic as to what's going to happen. Instead, they are probably going to promote Paul Hoover, who's the bench coach and has been a Matt Quatraro disciple. At the end of the day, they just kind of have to hope that they figure things out. And that's a really unfortunate scenario where the Royals have just not done good enough at putting together a capable roster, and the players have not done a good enough job of executing, because at this point of the season, they have done an awful job this year of executing with runners in scoring position, with runners on base. When you need a rally, they just have not been good enough. And the Royals are now 19-27. They're in a free fall in the American League Central. They have lost 6 games in a row. And if you think things have not been able to get worse, they continue to get worse here for the Royals. When we come back, we will break down the start for Noah Cameron, and that is coming up when we return here on the Royals Postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets for just getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you still have to fill sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, we have talked a lot about this season, pitchers struggling when a rain delay happens. I thought Noah Cameron pitched really well today, given the circumstances. He, at the end of the day, goes 6 innings, a quality start, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, no walks, and I thought he pitched himself out of jams multiple times. I understand that he is going to be on the tail end of a loss. I understand that Macro might have given him a little bit more of a leash, but you also have to understand that this is a team coming off of an 11-inning, snooze fest / extravaganza, where they had to pitch multiple pitchers. They had to throw, I believe, 6 pitchers in last night's game. They needed a long start out of Noah Cameron. He was going to get a longer outing than the Royals probably would have liked to given him. And he throws a decent performance. He, at the end of the day, when you look at his outing, he was better than usual. He got a 35% chase rate, which he did not get against the Tigers. Only 41% in the zone, 38% with his changeup, but he was 61% first strike rate. He was going over with the fastball. He had at least a game plan. I don't think that it's an outing that encourages you long term, where it's like, hey, Noah Cameron's back to where he was at last year when he was top 5 on Rookie of the Year voting and a real player for this Royals team. At the end of the outing, I was probably more surprised the fact that he went 6 innings and gave them a quality start. I thought that he was just underwhelming from a pitch-to-pitch basis. He was not in the strike zone. The Cardinals were giving a lot of chase. The fastball was not playing that well. At the end of the day, the Royals were competitive in the game. They fall just 4-2, but I just thought that Noah Cameron, I thought that it was a step in the right direction, but I thought there were more red flags than green in this outing because he was not in the strike zone. His fastball was not that great. His changeup was way out of the strike zone. And it was just the fact that the Cardinals were a team with a lot of left-handed batters. They were just chasing a lot of pitches that Cameron was throwing him and did not have I didn't think he had an exquisite outing. I thought that he was probably subpar as to what the Royals expected from him. And the Royals have now lost 6 straight games. Dating back to Cameron's last start, the offense has drastically taken a step back from where they were at a week ago. And I even remember saying on this show that the Royals offense, where, you could take I remember saying after one of the Guardians games that, hey, while they're playing well, the runners in scoring position numbers are still not great. They are still not getting great numbers out of some of the guys in the lineup that you need to get good numbers out of. You can look at some of these things as positives or negatives. You can say, hey, positive. Tonight, they only struck out 2 times. They hit Kyle Leahy pretty hard, but they just weren't able to win. Or you can look at it as a negative. They still aren't hitting with runners in scoring position. Nobody is making real strides at the plate to contribute in with runners in scoring position. And I just feel like at this point of the season, the Royals are who they are. We are now, it looks like 46 games into the season. Unless somebody really makes a real 180, this is a Royals team that is just not competitive right now. And it's unfortunate because this is the highest paid roster in franchise history. We talked about it a little bit on, I believe it was Wednesday, where there's not really a obvious roster change that you can make of the guys in this AAA Omaha system. There's not really a guy that you can say, hey, they can come up and contribute right away. It's just a fact that this team is underperforming expectations, and I'm not sure if they're going to get to expectations. Vinny Pasquantino continues to really struggle. Salvador Perez has taken a major step back. I just think that this team has really regressed in a lot of ways that we didn't expect coming into the season. And right now they're sitting at 19-27, and they have already lost their rivalry series against the St. Louis Cardinals. And who's to say that it's going to get much better? Because guess what? Coming home next week, you'd like to think, hey, coming into this homestand, they're going to have more opportunities. They get the Mariners, they get the Red Sox, and they get the Yankees. 3 teams they have not played well against this season, and I'm not expecting them to really turn this season around. We talked a couple of weeks ago, are they going to get back to 500? At this point of the season, I'm struggling to see a scenario in which they rally and put this team at 500 going into the trade deadline. It's a tough scenario. They just drastically underperformed expectations, and changes need to be made, whether it's lineup, roster, coaching staff. Maybe they'll make a change going into the homestand, but I just don't see this team at this point of the season. It's really hard to see them making a 180 in figuring out how to hit with runners in scoring position, figuring out how to pitch out of the bullpen. I thought that Bailey Falter today in multiple innings of work wasn't awful, but he also wasn't great. So I just think this is a team that has drastically underperformed expectations and is trying to find its identity way too late in the season. We are midway through May, and this team is still trying to find its identity throughout this season. Appreciate you guys for being here on a Saturday, especially after a loss. We will be back tomorrow afternoon. The Royals play, checking the schedule right now, the Royals play at 1:15 tomorrow, so be sure to mark your calendars. We'll be back around this time tomorrow, around 4:15-ish for Royals Cardinals series finale right here on the Locked On Royals channel. Appreciate you guys for being here. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Royals Postcast on the Locked On Royals channel.